dear students, again welcome back to your history class, and the topic which we are going to do today is the feminist movement in USA. Okay, so the feminist movement in USA is the topic which we will be doing today, and this is the last topic from this chapter, protest movement. Okay, so before we did about the protest movement which started in South Africa, we did about the apartheid movement, the role of Nelson Mandela, the features of apartheid movement, and we also did about this apartheid movement inside as well as outside South Africa, and how slowly the situation changed and how the white rule in India, the British rule in India, the British rule in South Africa, how it was ended, okay, and the black majority rule started. Okay, then the last topic is the feminist movement in USA. So the feminist movement, which is also known as the women's movement or women's liberation or women's lib. Okay, so this women's movement is also known as the women's liberation or women's lib, LIB. It refers to the series of campaign for reforms such as domestic violence, maternity leave, equal pay, women's suffrage, sexual harassment and sexual violence, all of which fall under this category. So, all this domestic violence, maternity leave, now again in USA also, in a country like USA also, there were domestic violence. Okay, women had to face domestic violence and they wanted maternity leave, again equal pay, they wanted women's suffrage, that is voting rights given to women, and in their workplace or wherever they went, especially women, they had to face sexual harassment and there was sexual violence. So this movement, this feminist movement, it began in Western world in the late 19th century. So this movement, women's movement, it began in the Western world during this 19th century. The feminist movement in the United States, Canada and other certain countries in Western Europe, it has gone through three waves. So this is important now, the three waves of the feminist movement. So this feminist movement, it had how many waves? It had three waves. Okay, so it had three waves, WAVES. The first wave of the feminism involved suffrage and political equality. Suffrage means voting rights to women and political equality. The women wanted equality in the field of politics and also they wanted the voting rights as men, because at the time the voting rights were only given to male and not female. So now they wanted voting rights and political equality. Second wave. What second wave wanted? The second wave of feminism attempt to combat, C-O-M-B-A-T, combat means to fight, F-I-G-H-T, to fight back. So, second wave, it attempt to fight back social and cultural inequalities. So, there were so many inequalities in society, in the Western world also, okay, social and in the field of culture also there were no equality. Okay, so they wanted to fight back this, they want to combat is fight back this social and cultural inequality. Then third wave includes renewed campaign for women's greater influence in politics. Okay, now women, they wanted greater influence in the field of politics. So are you clear with the three waves? First, they wanted voting rights and equal participation in the field of politics. Second wave, they wanted to fight back social and cultural inequality. And third wave, in the third wave, what they wanted? Greater influence of women in politics. Then this name, again, Virginia Woolf, V-I-R-G-I-N-I-A. Who was Virginia Woolf? W-O-O-L-F. Virginia Woolf. She was associated with the first wave of feminism. Okay, so Virginia Woolf, she was associated with the first wave of feminism, and she wrote a book. The name of the book was A Room of One's Own. A room, R-O-O-M, a room of one's own. A room of one's own, O-W-N. Then she described how men, in this book she described how men socially and physically dominated women. How men socially and physically dominated women. And the first meeting or convention of this first wave, it was held in New York City in 1837 to discuss about this women's right. And again in June 1848, there was this presidential candidate, Gerrit Smith, made women's suffrage a plank in his party platform, but the Liberty Party performed poorly at the poll. That means when there was an election in USA, then one of the candidate was, his name was, the candidate was Gerrit Smith. So Gerrit Smith made this women's movement or the voting rights for the women a plank, okay, for the party, okay, in the plank in his party. So Gerrit Smith, he was one of the candidate, okay. So for the presidentship, he was also now when there was an election for the president in USA, then Gerrit Smith also was one of the candidate, and he made this rights of the women, the voting rights of the women, his plank, okay, in this party. Then, but what happened? This party could not perform well. Then, under the influence of Elizabeth Stanton, S-T-A-N-T-O-N, Elizabeth Stanton, a convention was held in Seneca Falls in New York in August 1848. So, under the influence of Elizabeth Stanton, there was a meeting which was held in Seneca Falls in New York, and there were 12 resolutions which was adopted, and Stanton led the demand for voting rights for women. So, what was the demand? Voting rights for women. In United States, this first wave of feminism ended with the passing of 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. So, this first wave, because this first wave of feminism ended with passing of how many? 19 amendments. There were 19 amendments which was made in the Constitution of USA regarding what? The voting rights for women. Okay. So, this is about the first wave. So, first wave, it demanded what? Voting rights of the women and political equality. Now, second wave is important. In the second wave of feminism, okay, your second wave of feminism, this is important for your ISC. Yeah, the second wave of feminism, the activities began in early 1960s. So, early 1960s, the activities began regarding this second wave of feminism, and it lasted through the late 1980s. So, it started in 1960s and it lasted till the second wave of feminism. Okay, second wave of feminism started in 1960s and it lasted till 1980s. So, Betty, this name, B-E-T-T-Y, Betty Friedan, F-R-I-E-D-A-N. She was born, she played a very important role in the second wave of feminism. So, she was born in February 4th, 1921, and she was an American writer, she was activist and feminist. She was the leading figure in the women's movement in USA. So, she played a very important role in this women's movement, especially in the second wave of feminism. And her book, The Feminine Mystic, F-E-M-I-N-I-N-E M-Y-S-T-I-Q-U-A. This sparked off the second wave of American feminism in the 20th century. So, you have to remember the name of this book. So, I will be sending you a note on this as well. In 1966, Friedan again, she she founded and was elected the first president of NOW. NOW is National Organization for Women. National Organization for Women. Okay. So, she was the founder of National Organization of Women. National Organization for women. For women. Okay, so NOW. So, she was the founder. You might get question who was the founder. So, it is Betty Friedan who was the founder of this NOW. And what was the aim? The aim of this organization was, so Betty Friedan also became the first president of this organization, and the aim of this organization was to bring women into the mainstream of American society. So, the aim was to bring all the women into the mainstream of American society in fully equal partnership with men. So, this organization wanted equal partnership between male and female. On August 26, 1970, Friedan organized the nationwide women's strike for equality in New York City. So, there were also strike, okay, which was organized by Betty Friedan, which was nationwide, all over USA, all over New York, okay, regarding the equality of women. This strike attracted, so around 50,000 women were attracted to this strike. And in 1971, Friedan joined other feminists to establish women's political rights. Okay, so Betty Friedan also joined other feminists, and this is to establish women's right, political right. She was also a strong supporter of the proposed Equal Right Amendment. So, she also supported this Equal Right Amendment to the United States. Then, regarded as the influential author and intellectual in United States, this Betty Friedan remained active for women's equal rights. So, she was so active. So, this author Betty Friedan, she played a very important role in the second wave of feminism, and she remained active for women's equal participation in politics. She died in February 2005, okay, and she died at the age of 85, and during this time the feminists started campaign against cultural and political inequalities. So, the feminists, now they started movement for cultural and political inequalities. So, there were political and cultural inequalities in USA, and now the movement started fighting against this. Another important movement was the women's health movement, which emerged in 1960s and 1970s, in which there were multiple groups who were involved. So, there were multiple groups who were involved in this women's health movement. This movement exposed how the United States healthcare system was failing women. So, here it showed that how United States healthcare, okay, so this healthcare system, it failed, it was failing women. Male had full control over the system, and the question which led to women enrolling in medical schools, midwives are nurse, okay, like nurse, becoming licensed, and women becoming more involved, because in the medical field also it was only male who had dominated this medical system. Okay, so here medical schools, midwives, everywhere here it was totally dominated by male. So, the movement led to the pass of, so what this feminist movement passed was Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1972. So, women also wanted equal employment opportunity like male, okay, and an act was passed, Equal Employment Act was passed in 1972, okay. Then the last, I'll do this paragraph one more. What were the measures taken by the government for this equality, okay, for women's equality? So, what were the measures taken by the US government? During the Second World War, there were large number of female workers who took job in different factories. So, during the Second World War, there were a huge number of women who took part in jobs in different factories. But the employers paid them low salary than the male workers. So they were doing the same work, okay, but the salary which they got was less compared to male. Various feminist groups protested against this gender discrimination. So the feminists, they started to protest against this gender discrimination. Finally, American President J.F. Kennedy decided to abolish this gender discrimination. So who abolished this gender discrimination was the president, US President Kennedy, J.F. Kennedy. In 1963, the US Congress passed Equal Pay Act to prohibit discrimination on account of sex in the payment of wages by the employers. So again, the US government also in 1963 passed an act which was Equal Pay Act, and now according to this act, both there will be no discrimination in the payment, okay, payment of wages. So both male and female, they will be getting equal payment for equal work. The Congress passed Equal Pay Act in 1963 out of concern for the weaker bargaining position of women. To provide a remedy to discriminatory wage structure, the Equal Pay Act provides that the employer may not pay lower wages to employee of one gender that it pays to the employee of the other gender with the same establishment with equal skill, responsibility and similar working condition. This means according to this Equal Pay Act, now if the male and the female are they are working in the same factory, they are doing the same work, okay, they are working for equal hours, same hours, okay, same work, the working condition is same, the responsibility is the same, then there should be no discrimination between male and female. Okay, they should be getting equal payment. Okay, the wages between this male and the female should be equal if they are doing equal work. So equal payment for equal work. Okay, so these were the measures taken by the government. So the government came up with Equal Pay Act in 1963 to provide equal pay to both male and female if they were doing equal work. Okay, I'll stop here and I'll send you notes, but just quickly I'll just go through. I did about the definition, what does feminist movement mean. Okay, this I'll send you a note. And again, the first wave of feminism, okay, what does it says? There were three waves of feminism in Western world, especially USA. The first wave, it involves suffrage, voting rights and political equality. Second, to fight against social and cultural inequalities. And third wave, greater participation of women in politics. Okay, so here in the first wave, again as we did this earlier, that voting rights. Now this feminist movement fought for the voting rights of women, especially here Virginia Woolf played an important role here. She came up with the book Room of One's Own, and here Elizabeth Stanton also. Here there were convention, a meeting which was held for equal voting rights. Okay, and finally there were 19 amendments which were passed in USA for the voting rights of women. Second wave is important, it's very important, where Betty Friedan played a very important role. She also became the president. She founded this NOW, that is National Organization for Women, and she became the president of this organization which fought for the rights of the women, equal participation of the women. Okay, then the healthcare center in USA was also, it was failing women. Again, it was totally dominated by male. Okay, so here also an act was passed, Equal Employment Opportunity Act was passed in 1972. And finally, the measures which were taken by the government, the US President and the US Congress came up with this act, Equal Pay Act in 1963, where they wanted to provide equal payment for equal work for both male and female. Okay, so this is what we have done today, and I'll send you notes on the second wave of feminism, which is important. Okay.